We're getting into basically after we talked about the fall of Rome, the Roman Empire, which happened to be probably one of the most influential empires of the world at the time. Um, we see that it falls apart and it kind of reshifts and changes. We're also kind of getting into early Christianity with the start of the Byzantine Empire. One of the main things that we're going to be focusing on, obviously, today is just Constantinople. But at one point in time, and we'll get into this. One point in time, there were four major churches. There was Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, which is in Egypt right here, and then in Israel, which was Jerusalem. These four major churches were kind of the churches that kind of came together and really communicated on things like, okay, so how do we go about teaching about Jesus? Okay, and what specifics about Jesus? Okay, so we're going to focus on divinity. Okay, what does that look like? And so they would all kind of share their ideas. Like Rome would be like, we're teaching it this way. Constantinople would say, we're going this way. Then Alexandria, Jerusalem would kind of chime in, and then they would kind of all share the idea and hoping to be on the same page. But later on, we're going to talk about that we'll lose two of those churches, Jerusalem, and you'll also see Alexandria go away, and due to the rise of Islam. And then eventually in this, I think today we might be talking about it, is the schism, which was in 1054, Constantinople and Rome split from each other. And basically there was a disagreement about how should you go about teaching Christianity. And one of the main reasons is because of the Byzantine Empire. And so we're going to talk about that. And that ultimately created what is called denominations, the splitting of the church. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Like I said, you can write down the answers. But Constantinople, we talked about it, that, Constantine, he created his own city, named it after himself. And really he kind of viewed it as, probably his favorite capital, his favorite place. Rome kind of gets put in the back burner. For the Greek word for Constantinople means the city of Constantine. This had become the capital of the Roman Empire and became an important part for Emperor Constantine during his reign. But things would kind of change. We see that Constantinople would ultimately become the seat of the Eastern Roman Empire. And so your definition for Eastern Roman Empire is right here. It's here in the yellow. It became known as the Byzantine Empire. So that's all you have to write down is for Eastern Roman Empire is became known as Byzantine Empire. Because here's what happens. Rome kind of falls. The western half falls. And we talked about that in section 5, I believe, or 4, section 4 in the last chapter in 6. Basically, Rome, the economy's going downward, military-wise. Things are not organized. Things are, and we also see the Mongols come in. We see the push of other Germanic tribes just causing problems in the West. And so things are disorganized. Things are a problem. So Rome just kind of gets, let's not worry about the West. Let's just worry about the East. The East is thriving. The East is doing well. And so the Eastern Roman Empire starts to shift away from Rome and ultimately becomes its own little empire, the Byzantine Empire, especially after certain Germanic tribes take over Rome. And so we see that even before the fall of Rome, you start to see that Constantinople is becoming more richer, more powerful. And so Rome is kind of, it's becoming kind of the old rundown city. It's, like sometimes you see in cities, like certain halves of cities, like at one point in time, South Oklahoma City was, one of the more thriving parts of Oklahoma City. And then northern Oklahoma City starts to grow and everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to go move over there. And South kind of gets, left behind. And that's kind of what happens with Rome in the big empire. We see that the location was a big part of that. The Bosphorus Strait helped control trade in the Asian Minor. Let me go back up to the map here. You can see here in the Black Sea, this part of the region, the Black Sea, and then you also have here in this part of the Mediterranean, and then you've got obviously a lot of these connections to waterways. But Constantinople having this little port right here that helped connect to the Mediterranean was a big part in that success. But we also see that the water helped with guarding from attacks on both sides. Also, they had well designed forts with walls that helped as well. The biggest claim to the empire was the eastern parts because of its success. And one of those who kind of took advantage of this time was Justinian the First. Now, Justinian obviously recognized how important the West was. And so he was one of the Eastern Empire emperors who was like, look, Rome is not what it used to be, but we can try to reclaim it, rebuild it. And so he wants to reclaim part of the West and rebuild the Roman Empire. So obviously military action is needed to do this. If you're going to go and try to reclaim the West, you got to have the right military. And so they reconquer Northern Africa, take some of those territories, and they take out the Vandals, Germanic tribe there. Belisarius was one of those who was very successful in helping Justinian in 533 to create this opportunity to retake Northern Africa. He was the general who helped lead a lot of successes in their battles, trying to reclaim any sort of land. Your definition for Belisarius is right here. You want to write that down real quick. I'll give you some time. Hits everything in yellow. I would probably start here at the bottom with led troops and then make your way back up to the top. So Belisarius was one of those troops, one of those generals. He was a very strong leader. He was very well organized. He was a brute. He was not one to mess with. He definitely was kind of like a kingpin. The Justinian would kind of tell him like, hey, need you to get this done for me. And he's like, okay, I got you. Kind of like, old Italian Godfather type stuff. By 534, we see that they recapture the African region, absorbed back the Roman Empire. By 535, led troops to Italy to retake that region as well. He was a very successful general, able to really find success in his ability. We're also going to see that here in a few minutes that even when Justinian is losing favor with the people, Belisarius is going to come in and he's going to really help lead this campaign to just put people down. Basically say, yeah, you're not going to push us around. You're going to know who's the boss. It's not Tony Danza. It's me. Okay. And that's a old reference to an 80s television show, Who's the Boss. If you're watching Young Sheldon, they definitely talk a lot about Who's the Boss on that show. Big Young Sheldon fan. I'm also stalling here because I know some of you need a little bit more time to write this down. So anyway, but not sure if you were on this Thanksgiving, we're watching some Young Sheldon, but that's what I was doing, watching Young Sheldon. They definitely have a lot of Alf references, a lot of Golden Girls, a lot of Tony Danza and the Who's the Boss. All right, so if you can't get all this down, that's fine. Just on Wednesday, I can give you a chance to write this. I'm also recording this, so you can always go back on the recording to get it. But Belisarius is definitely one who led troops in the campaign on the west to get this opportunity to recapture. We do see, though, Justinian, he ends up having a wife who, Theodora, who comes in. She's kind of not your typical queen type person. She's kind of a, rough around the edges type woman, not perfect, not great, not the kind of a shady background. There's definitely some questions like, ooh, she really need to be a part of the empire? But he marries her. She becomes a co-ruler of the empire. But here's the part of the problem is that the people start to lose faith in Justinian and Theodora's, ability to rule this new empire. And so these rebels start to rise up and really try to really change the game. And so many resented Justinian's efforts. And so by 532, there's an opposition led by a rebellion of the Nika revolt to try and take down Justinian. We see two factions led a revolt. There was the Greens representing the lower classes, the Blues, the upper classes. We see that Constantinople is in a crisis. Things are not going well. We're seeing that Constantinople is in flames. People are destroying it. Justinian's at the point, he's like, I'm going to get out of here. This is ridiculous. I'm going to get killed. I'm going to run, and I'm done with this. And Theodora's like, no, fool. Like, I'm queen. I'm co-emperor, empress, I guess. Empress, I guess is the term. And she's like, I'm not giving this power up. You're staying here with me. We can do this. We got this. Don't flee. And basically convinces her hubby to stay strong, and goes, hey, Belisarius, go in there and you take these guys down. So here's what they do. They take the green and the blues, these factions, and they go, hey, okay, we're gonna work with you. We're gonna negotiate. Let's negotiate. You meet us here in this arena, or this I guess you could kind of say like a Coliseum type stadium. You meet us here and we'll talk things out. What they don't know is that these rebels, it's a trap. Like, General Akbar from, Star Wars, for all my Star Wars people. My seventh hour will like that reference. I don't know about you first hour people. But anyway, it was a trap. And Belisarius and his troops swarm in on these rebels. They crush them. They destroy them, kill them, slaughter them, however you want to put it. Basically, that's how they shut down the rebellion, and then that's how Justinian and Theodora hold on to their power. So Belisarius comes to the rescue again, and this is, you can see, this is a mosaic of the two. The two, Justinian and Theodora, and we're going to learn about what mosaics are. On Wednesday, I will have a video about how certain mosaics are made of them. Are made. Sorry. So the Nika revolt destroyed parts of Constantinople, but it did give Justinian and Theodora a chance to rebuild the city. And they go, ooh, so we have an opportunity to spend some money here and rebuild the city. So it's kind of like HGTV, Constantinople style. There you go. Throwing a lot of pop culture references. Most important new building church was the Hagia Sophia, known as the Holy Wisdom, is why it's in its name. So big, massive church. This is going to ultimately have some references when we talk about the fall of Constantinople, because it will change its name. We do see that it was very spectacular, had a lot of domes, arches. Still stands today. It's an Islamic mosque today, though. Justinian, one of the biggest things also too he established was Justinian Code. Basically set up a codified system of laws that basically were arranged to let people know of the legal system, of his certain opinions of what things would go. Corpus Curius Civilius had 4 parts. First part included all existing constitution from time of the Emperor Hadrian, and then the code later updated with Justinian's laws as well. So it would evolve over time. We see Justinian died in 565. We see that by the time, though, he died, he did not manage the end of the government very well, left it pretty much bankrupt. Probably they spent way too much on the renovations. Haha, that was a joke. But it's possibly also true. So many expenses were spent, had expanded the empire beyond what the government could actually administer. Even though they were able to add more to the empire, they couldn't control it. So again, the western provinces would fall once again to those tribes. Heraclius, you want to write your definition for Heraclius. He's right there in yellow. So we're going to talk about the reign of Heraclius. Heraclius began in 610. He would step in and really kind of reestablish certain parts of the Byzantine Empire. He would have some success. One of the things that he did is he helped defeat the Persians, who were trying to really knock on the door of the Eastern Empire, the Byzantine Empire. So that's his biggest main accomplishment, is he took down the Persians. And the Persians around this time are, still trying to rebuild some things, restore their past in some ways, but not at the level it was when they were facing the Greeks. They also settled the Croats, the Serbs within the Balkan frontiers to the west, to act as buffers against the new invaders. We also see the Croats, Serbs converted to Christianity, extending the Byzantine influence into that region. So again, for Heraclius, if you've written them down, make sure you wrote that defeated the Persians in the eastern border. So there you go. Okay, so what about the Byzantine culture? Here's the main thing about the Byzantine culture is that it was based on two institutions: the emperor, what the emperor believed and how they ruled, and Christianity, obviously. Christianity is going to play a big part even in this day. Emperor was kind of the priest king, considered deputy of Jesus Christ on earth. Not saying he was Jesus. They're not saying that he was Jesus or had that level of power, but they were to be in charge of God's kingdom on earth. That's kind of as viewed as a co-ruler. I have some dispute with that. I wouldn't even say they're a co-ruler. I would just say they're more of just there to ensure that God's kingdom is protected. But, again, that was their time, their belief. The emperor was also responsible for both civil and religious law. Your answer to number one is Greek culture. Greek culture. You just want to write if you don't have the study guide with you, just write number one and just write Greek culture. Greek culture. We do see that this is where things shift in the Byzantine Empire. It becomes less Roman. Things at one point in time were all about the Roman culture, about the Roman gods. And we start to see that the people of Constantinople are starting to recognize that their culture is a little bit different, a little bit more unique. The eastern half is much different from the western half. People of Constantinople start to see themselves less Roman. Even though they were part of the Roman Empire once, or they even see themselves as Romans, they start to recognize the Greek culture more, and it makes sense. They're much more closer to Greece than they are closer to Rome, and so a lot of that Greek influence starts to grow and become stronger and be a part of their whole society. Your answer number 6, if you don't have the study guide, just write number 6 and then write Emperor Heraclius. This is where things start to change. The end of Roman traditions is Emperor Heraclius. Heraclius comes in and he goes, you know what? We're not Roman anymore. We don't do Rome stuff anymore. That time has passed. We're changed. We're Greek now, people. We speak more Greek than we speak Latin. And so that's what he does, is he gets rid of the Latin and he says, hey, Greek's our official language. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go Greek. We're going the Greek life. And so that's what he does. Replaces all Roman imperial titles with Greek ones. And he goes Greek. And that's what ends up happening. That's why the Byzantine Empire starts to become Greek Orthodox in its Christianity when we get to that. So again, number 6, Emperor Heraclius should be right there. So number 2 is Christianity. So there you go. Christianity, number 2, if you want to write number 2, Christianity. And then mosaics, your definition's right here. So mosaics and your definition there in the yellow. So Christianity obviously plays a big influence in the Byzantine culture, especially when the Greek influence comes in. That's when we see less of the Roman way. We see more of a Greek Orthodox way. But Christianity not only influenced their belief system, but it influenced their artistic life of the Byzantine Empire. We see the art and architecture starts to have a lot more religious themes. We see that the Byzantine art often featured saints, figures from the Bible. They would put a lot of influence on Bible figures, really making their artwork based off of people like Peter, John, well-known individuals from the Bible. some apostles that would eventually become saints or known as saints. But the biggest contribution that Christianity or Byzantine brought to the Byzantine Empire brought to Christianity was the creation of the mosaic. The mosaic is basically it is an image created with tiny little tiles, colored tiles, fitted together and cemented in place to decorate it on floors, walls, ceilings. So basically, you take these little tiles that have colors and you kind of break them up and you shape them in different ways, and you have to kind of plan it out. So obviously, there's some drawing involved, and then you have to kind of lay it together as well as you can, and then you basically cement it, and then there's a washing process to kind of clean it up, and then it kind of has this beautiful, nice image. And I'm going to show you a video on Wednesday about this. There's this guy, I think he's in Chicago. Yeah, it's Chicago. Basically, he fixes potholes, but instead of just going, oh, I'm just gonna get some cement and just cover up the pothole, he basically he wants to make it a little bit different, unique. He creates a mosaic, and then he puts the mosaic down, and he has cement to cover the pothole, and then when he cleans it all off, yeah, the pothole's fixed, but there's this nice little mosaic there, and it's really cool. I don't know if he still does it today. I hope he still does, but it's really unique and awesome. But yeah, they're little images created with tiny colored tiles fitted together, cemented in place. And here's let's go back to this image here. These are, again, this is what a mosaic looks like. You can, if you kind of look closely, if you're able to, you can see these little square tiles, and they're pretty unique. So, all right. So yes, mosaics were popular, and they're very stylized. So mosaics, paintings would change over time, change the style of art. Symbols became a big common theme in with mosaics. You would see that hand of above the cross, kind of like the hand of God. 12 lambs, kind of the 12 apostles. They were the lambs of God. Not lambs of God. Sorry, they were lambs shepherded by God, I guess you could say. Christian flock, the community on earth. That's kind of what their image was. Architecture obviously played a big part. Domes, round domes, played a big part. We see that certain corner supports, walls that were in the shape of from Hagia Sophia played a big influence in Europe and Asia during this time. However, while this is going on, this is creating some conflicts. Like I said, Rome and Constantinople were working together and figuring things out, but this is going to cause a divide in 700. And we see that this is creating some controversy. Ooh. And so, especially over the idea of icons, paintings, or sculptures of sacred figures. And there's definitely a dispute over icons because there was these nice, beautiful icons of certain people and objects, and some Christians did not like it. They did not. They objected to the presence of them. They felt like it was too close to idol worshiping, and some people called iconoclasts or icon breaker did not like the icons. We do see that your answer number 7 is Leo the Third. Leo Third, or 1, 2, 3. There you go. In 726, Emperor Leo the Third forbid the use of icons and ordered their destruction. So iconoclast movement, popular with many in the church hierarchy. So the iconoclast, again, is the icon movement, the support of icons. So I might have misspoke there on the previous slide. Since few could read, people love the icons because not many people could read the Bible. Not many people could understand the stories. And so the clergy liked the images because they were helpful for teaching, because they could always point to the image and go, see, look at this image. This explains what we're talking about today. And so it was a good visual, because there are some visuals learners out there. People learn from watching videos or seeing pictures. Those play a big part. And so that helped in teaching the Bible. But reaction against iconoclasm raged on and off until 843. This is going to cause more issues, not over just icons, but other disputes within Rome and Constantinople, and ultimately cause more and more divisions in Christianity. So we're seeing this growing divide in Eastern and Western churches. Also, Greek playing a big part. The Greek influence played a difference in theology. The fact that Constantinople was going more Greek and less Roman really, confused the ability to do some things. We also see that the Eastern Church thought, hey, yeah, you can, clergy can marry, they can have a wife. Whereas in the West was like, no, they have to be devoted to God. They can't marry. So that became another big issue. So that's causing problems. What else? Let's see here. But this is going to carry on in other ways, like it's the ability to govern. The Pope in Rome, the patriarchs in Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, Jerusalem were the church leaders. They were all working together. They oversaw the church law. They figured things out. They worked together. But the Byzantines did not accept the Pope as the supreme authority over all religious issues. They thought, hey, we're on the same team here. We all have the same equal voice. Whereas the Pope in Rome was like, I'm supreme leader. You have to listen to me. And they were like, no, we don't. So it's kind of that kind of bickering and fight. It's like high school. Anyway, but in 1054, obviously, like I said, Islam comes in, destroys Jerusalem, destroys Alexandria. So it only comes down to two churches. And that's Constantinople and Rome. And so in 1054, you had the division, which is known as the schism. Called a split. The schism is another way of saying split, which ultimately occurred between the two churches, and basically Rome and Constantinople were like, we're done. We're separating from each other, mostly because of the issue over the Pope, not recognizing him as the supreme leader. And so you see Rome becomes what we know today as the Roman Catholic Church. And then in Constantinople, it started what is called the Orthodox Church, or the Greek Orthodox Church. So later, this would hurt the Byzantine Empire from other invaders when Islam is coming knocking at the Constantinople door, because Rome's kind of like, I don't know if we want to help you. Your answer number 3, if you want to write, is Heraclius. So there you go. Heraclius comes back. So going as far back as to Heraclius, we see that Muslims are threatening the empire. Islam is pressuring Constantinople, constantly nitpicking, constantly coming at them and going, let's try to push their buttons. And ultimately, at some, they had a strong wall, they had a strong defense, but at some point that's going to break and fall. So Heraclius, hope you wrote that down for number 3. We see that invaders are knocking at the door, constantly attacking the northern borders. In 600 provinces of Egypt, Syria fell to the Muslim conquerors. That's why Alexandria goes. Leo III tried to stop advancing Muslim forces in 1718, 740, had some success, but eventually it's not going to last long. Constantine V won victories against the Bulgars. Failed to maintain his gains, though. By 800, Byzantines had endured a century of crisis. And so then we see that Macedonian dynasty ruled in 867 and 1056. Emperors improved peasantry, created law school, extended the Byzantine rule during this time. The Balkans, the Bulgars, established the Orthodox Christianity in southeastern Europe. Had some success there, but ultimately the Macedonia declined. You remember, Macedonia is the northern part of Greece. Had some success with Alexander during that time, but they fell in 150 years later. There's some conflicts dividing Byzantine society. We see that the Constantinople government, composed of well-educated cultural aristocrats, are causing some issues with others. Some supported emperors who restrained military use and energies to make Constantinople center of culture and learning. We do see that the focus on culture came at a cost, though. We see members of the military aristocracy saw things a little bit differently. Based in provinces more aware of the encroaching danger of the government, the capital, support emperors who had soldiers in themselves. Eventually, there's a decline between the military and Constantinople governments. It's weakening with inside and not helping in the ability to advance and be strong. And this was what brings on the Seljuk Turks, which we're going to talk about the Turks in section 3, so be prepared for that. Seljuk Turks, sorry, I can't say their name this morning, conquering the areas on the empire's borders. In 1071, the Turks defeated the Byzantine army at Mazakert. And we see permanently weakening the Byzantines, Eastern Asia Minor. That same year, they lost the last outpost in Italy, ending the presence in the West. And by 1391, the empire reduced Constantinople to its outlying districts. At some point, basically, what ends up happening is the Turks surround Constantinople. They take out their northern control, they take out their eastern control, their western control, and basically start to close in and lock them into one location, and that's Constantinople, and basically corner them. And by 1453, Constantinople would ultimately fall to the Ottoman Turks, which basically Seljuk Turks would come to known as the Ottoman Turks. So your answer number 4 is Constantinople. And then your answer number 5 is Istanbul. Okay. So I know this is a little confusing. Number 4 is Constantinople. Number 5 is Istanbul. And then your definition for Istanbul is Turks renamed the city Constantinople. So there you go. That's your definition. So in 1453, Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks, and the Turks decided, hey, we're going to change the name. Constantine doesn't rule this place anymore. We do. So we get to rename it. We're calling it Istanbul. Istanbul, which I'll play that song on Wednesday. The Hagia Sophia, ultimately at that point in time, no longer becomes the Christian church that it once was, becomes a mosque. The Ottomans gained the important seat of power, spread the influence into Greece and the Balkans, and we see the Byzantine legacy comes to an end at this point in time. We do see that there is a preservation of ancient Greco-Roman heritage. There is a buffer between Christian West and the Muslim East, though, but the Byzantine Empire itself is gone, and sadly, the Roman Empire is dead. But there's still a lot of great things that came out of it. We're going to talk about section 2 on Wednesday. We're going to talk about the beginning of the Russian people, and then eventually we'll talk about the Turks on section 3. So that does it for